So here's the first step after I have the 4 pieces of fabric on top of each other, is I'm going to fold 3 pleats on both sides of the mask. It doesn't really matter how even they are or where they end up finishing, so long as you have 3. So here's one side done. Here's my other side done. So when I lay it out flat, it's going to look like this. Next, I'm going to stitch those down. Next, I'm going to be binding my pleats now that they've been stitched down. So I'm going to take my fabric and start by folding it right sides together, up and over the raw edge. On the other side, I'm going to do the same thing where I'm going to fold it over so all of my raw edges are tucked in together, and then I'm going to stitch that down. So that is my next step. So now I've stitched my binding down, and you can see it's finished on both sides. There's no more raw edges exposed. And when I lay my mask down, you can see that the pleats are all facing, this is the top, this is the bottom. So this is the outside of the mask, and this is the inside of the mask. I'm going to take my 2 edges and fold them together. So I have the outside of the mask right sides together. I'm going to pull the length of it taut like this. Now I have taken my pattern and made a second piece to it. So this is the original pattern, the one that I've enclosed. I've taken it again and cut a second one, only this time I've cut the pattern in half and cut out the dart. So it looks like this. So I've been using this to mark where my seams are going to go for my dart so that I don't have to pull the whole pattern out again for each one. So I'm going to take this and line it up. This is the bottom where my dart is going to go, and then I mark it. And this is the top where my dart is going to go, and then I mark that. And then I'm going to stitch those down on the top and the bottom. So here's the mask with the darts stitched down and trimmed. It's important on this side of it to make sure that you do a back stitch, because otherwise when you flip the mask outside, the stitches will pull. On this one, I just used pinking shears to trim it, nothing super fancy. So now that I have that, I'm going to attach the ties, and that's the last step. So I'm going to take my 2 lengths of fabric that I've cut, and I'm going to find the center of that long piece. So here's the center of that long piece of fabric. I'm going to do the same binding style that I did for the side for the rest of the mask, but I want to make sure that I'm pinning the center of my long piece of fabric to the center where the dart is of this mask so that the ties are even on both sides. So I'm going to do the same thing where I fold in my raw edges like this, and then I place the mask in the middle of the raw edge and fold it over. So I don't pin a lot for this mask, but I do pin here so that when I'm stitching it down, I keep my mask in the center. So for this one, I am going to show you how I stitch the length of it down because it's a little bit more complicated. I'm going to do that same fold where I put my right sides together, and then I fold it in half again. And I start by doing a back stitch. And now I'm going to stitch down the length of the tie. I'm going to stop here. When I get about 2/3 of the way down, I'm going to line up my mask on that tie so that when I stitch it down, I have it stitched past where it needs to go. So now I have it tucked in there, and I can keep sewing. Make sure that everything is lining up correctly. Continue folding the bias tape or fabric, whatever you're using to sew it down. All the way through until you've finished the tie on the other side. Now you can make this step easier by folding this, the tie down in the way that you're gonna stitch it, but I just use my fingers and fold it as I go instead of doing everything folded and ironed ahead of time. So there, now you can see we've attached the one tie all the way through, and it's just one seam. So we're gonna do the same thing for the other side of the mask, and it's done. All right, so the mask is all done. The top has been stitched down with the ties, and the bottom, here's the outside, and here's the inside. Oop, I have some thread there. So to sanitize, I have been sticking these guys in the microwave for 30 seconds and then putting them in Ziploc bags before we deliver them to the friends. So that is my little instructional video. If you have any questions, just give me a text.